There's evidence as far as 30,000 years ago to suggest that humans harvested and used red corals. We dug them up from the seafloor, breaking them off of coral reefs, and we cherished them for their vivid red beauty. Ancient man turned this coral into jewelry and ornamentation, and they believed it had medicinal and aphrodisiacal qualities if consumed, and it became a valuable trading commodity. These red coral colonies of the species Corallium rubrum are ecologically valuable. They form huge reefs in the photic zones of the Mediterranean Sea and other places around the world. These red corals are slow to reproduce, and they're slow to grow. But it's worth it, as the red coral colonies can eventually form huge reefs, which provide a complex physical habitat for other animals. Fish, crustaceans, arthropods, aquatic plants, and fungi, all of them can live in the reefs, creating complex food webs and hotspots of ecological activity. It's a shame, then, that humans should find red coral so commercially valuable, as we've harvested it in greater and greater quantities across the centuries, and in more recent decades, the rate of extraction has vastly outpaced the red coral's rate of growth. Reefs were being systematically destroyed, and marine ecologies, like those in the Mediterranean, suffered enormously. This damage and unsustainable destruction eventually led to political change in the mid to late 90s, as protected areas were established to allow the red coral the space and the time to regenerate. And this brings me to today's news. These protected areas, these marine reserves in the Mediterranean, are showing signs of improvement. A study has recently been conducted by scientists at the Institute of Environment, Science and Technology at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. This research institute sits on the northwestern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and so it is perfectly positioned to study the growth and recovery of these local red coral reefs. Their study explored the history of red coral decline and protection efforts, including the period through the 1990s where the red corals were at their lowest health status, struggling to maintain their populations. Researcher Sergio Rossi said, quote, "The very slow growth and low reproductive rates of red coral, combined with its continuous harvest and intense periods of overexploitation, makes the majority of the actual red coral small in size and unable to do its function in the habitat, thereby affecting several species." Unquote. However, thanks to these protection efforts, these red corals have had a chance to regrow and reclaim their place as the physical basis of Mediterranean reef ecology. They've had more than 2 decades to regrow, and the results are wonderful. The modern red corals in the Ligurian Sea in northwest Italy have recovered to the point that they were at in the 1960s, and the red corals along the Catalonia shore have recovered to the point they were at in the 1980s. In addition, the capacity for these reefs to sequester carbon has recovered to 1.5 to twice what it was in the 1990s. CTA UAB researcher Patriza Zveri said, quote, "This work stresses once more the urgent need of protection measures in Mediterranean marine biodiversity hotspot areas to improve the resilience and adaptation of key endemic systems. The positive note is that the protection measures can be effective relatively quickly. This is important because it gives to these ecosystems greater capacity to resist and recover following climate events in this rapidly changing Mediterranean Sea." Unquote.